Hello everybody, it's Wyvern here with another bit of Total War Warhammer 2 Quick Match gameplay. This time around we are in the Bleak Dale, playing as the forces of the Empire against the forces of the Vampire Counts, and obviously classic matchup, and the build here is a pretty classic composition. I simply need a break from trying out all the different stuff that dropped with the patch. I was trying to see what changes and how significant the changes were in regards to gameplay, especially with the Vampire Coast. And so I had to take a break, and we're running some good old Empire here. The build you guys are probably used to seeing, or you've definitely seen it before if you've been following this channel for a bit. Karl Franz is coming in here. He does have his full kit except for Foe Seeker. He's got Hold the Line, he's got Stand Your Ground, Reikland Runefang, and the Golem Raz, so he is going to hit like an absolute truck and have the potential to buff his troops pretty awesomely. He is only mounted on a normal horse because honestly you don't need to put him on any of his other mounts, to be honest. Barded Warhorse, in my opinion, costs way too much for what you're getting, and bringing a Griffin, well, if you're not bringing a whole bunch of anti-air, you're not going to win that air fight against Vampire Counts. And Pegasus also I just don't think is useful. So either way, we got Pegasus on a horse, or Karl Franz on a horse. Can't even talk here. Alongside him, a warrior priest here to represent the Cult of Sigmar, also coming in on a horse. He's got a pretty wide assortment of stuff. His full kit, in fact, he's got Soulfire. Obviously, my opponent went with sort of some heavy-duty magic. I wanted to be able to resist it. Shield of Faith, of course, great buff. Scroll of Power to be able to rewind all of my abilities, and Hammer of Sigmar, providing extra melee attack in AoE. We also do have Divine Power, potentially useful against Vampire Counts, who are probably going to be overcasting a good amount, and a Benediction, which it grants +8 leadership around him. Surprisingly useful. Empire Cav, even Demigrave Knights can rout. Their leadership is not flawless, so they can definitely buckle, especially if Terror is into play. And Banner of Eternal Flame. If my opponent has some regenerating troops, which you never know, Vampire Counts do have a few, especially Vargwolves and those sorts of troops, then it's nice to have some things to punish them with. Finally, we do have a Jade Wizard who is here with Earthblood, Regrowth, and Life Bloom, as well as a Power Stone. I probably should have brought Awakening of the Wood to deal with magical or physically resistant units like Cairn Wraiths, but unfortunately I did not. For our main cavalry contingent, double Demigrave Knights, one of which is the Royal of Griffites. Obviously the Terror is not going to come into play here, but it is at least going to make them immune to Terror, and they are getting buffed here by the presence of the Warrior Priest and getting those flaming attacks. In the second line, we do have 2 units of Outriders with grenade launchers to mulch enemy infantry, 2 Outriders to shoot at flyers and harass cav and all that sort of stuff. Then we do have a front line composed of 2 spearmen and Sigmar's on either end, and then Sigmar's sons in the center. So these guys are just an anchor to hold. They don't really serve much other purpose. For my opponent, he has gone with a very wide infantry-heavy contingent. So for his lord, he is up in the sky, the new and improved Red Duke. For those of you who don't know, the Red Duke, well, I guess improved is not entirely true. He got Frenzy. He's gone up in price. I think his stats might have gotten some slight adjustments. The main thing is, though, is that he did get Frenzy. So, on one hand, pretty damn potent. On the other, he is now more expensive. So we'll see how he performs here. He does have his Raised Dead. He does have Invocation of the Heck. Of course, the obligatory El Sif, Potion of Strength, a Scroll of Leeching, and that's it. And he does, of course, have his Breath Attack because he's on Dragon. And I'm not entirely sure how he now compares to the newly nerfed Blood Dragon Lord, who's gotten some hits and some stats and cost, I do believe, and the Helm of Discord has been nerfed as well. For my opponent's Cav contingent, he does have 2 units of Blood Knights here to contest the Cav game, so definitely looking pretty strong with the Red Duke and the Knights. He also does have 3 units of Fellbats up in the sky looking to harass my own light Cav, and a front line that's definitely much heftier than mine. 2 units of Crypt Pools on this end, Crypt Pools on this end, a mix of Spears and Graveguard in the center, and then a single unit of Graveguard Great Weapons in the very, very center, tailing on the rear end of these Spears and Graveguard to provide some AP support if, for example, I brought Greatswords. And then the lines are, of course, closing because neither side here has really brought much long-range firepower. I've got Outriders, which are a great unit. I absolutely adore them. I think they're honestly one of the best skirmish cav in the game. And perhaps if I do a full skirmish cav tier list sometime, I would definitely put these guys on there. Perhaps as the top unit, or definitely one of the best. Both Outriders and Outriders and Launchers are just so good in my opinion, but definitely not going to be doing long-range harass with them. You can see, though, the Outriders, they're getting some shots into the Crypt Ghouls, immediately mincing them. You can see these guys did lose about 1,000 HP in a single volley. If we compare them to these Crypt Ghouls, you can see over 1,000 HP lost in that single volley from the grenade launchers, which just shows the killing power of these units. And now as my opponent is trying to close here, we are going to counterattack, sally out with the spears, and interdict. And he is dropping his bats now, but this is a little premature, and this is actually advantageous for me. Because as he's going to drop his bats here, we are going to be able to counterattack, push in our casters and our heroes and our knights, and just overwhelm these guys and knock them out right quick. And in the meantime, my opponent is still trying to position and posture here with his Blood Knight, so he's coming in a little haphazardly. Certainly getting some value. Certainly going to be able to drop a nasty breath there and do a little bit of hurt to something. I'm not even sure what that was aimed at, honestly, looking at it. But breath did something probably. But he is going to get a nice little summon here of Skeleton Warriors. That Overcast coming in. You can see he actually does get a struggle suffer there from the Overcast as he's casting Invocation of Neck because he is so close probably to the Warrior Priest. In the meantime, though, we are pushing and clearing out these last Fellbats, which is really nifty. And here, almost disaster striking. My opponent making a slight misplay. Instead of killing my Life Wizard here with his Blood Knights, he's actually allows him to escape, which allows me to intercept here with my relative demis, the normal demis, and in comes Carl and the Warrior Priest, who are on the wrong side of the engagement, dropping all their buffs on the Warrior Priest, as well as stand your ground on Carl, though obviously not all of our buffs from Carl, and then immediately starting to mince through these Blood Knights. And unfortunately, the Royal Sacrifice here getting pounded and definitely decimated down to 15 miles before I cast a heal, which huge misplay on my part. I really should have had these guys healed and in good shape much sooner. We are finally getting a heal off Earthblood, and this should have happened ages ago. That said, you know, despite the Invocation of Net going down and all that sort of stuff, we were able to whittle these guys down. And now the Outriders who escaped are pounding away at the Red Duke, who is in an atrocious position now because he's very exposed to these guys, and there's nothing to protect him. So he's just getting pounded. He is still being healed by Invocation, but those Outriders are starting to take a chunk out of him. In the meantime, the Grenades are winning this frontline fight for me. Now, obviously, we're probably going to lose in the long run, but these infantry are not going to get anywhere, and definitely not cost effectively. You can see the Outriders with Grenade launchers there whittling down the Graveguard, and they're just going to be able to kite away, let these spears crumble, and win us that fight. In the meantime, over here in the pits, the Blood Knight's getting dumpstered. You can see the heals just constantly going down on these relative grip fights. We did our rewind, getting all of our powers back up on the Warrior Priest with the Scroll of Power, and then immediately casting the abilities once more, just getting that full buffage to be able to really annihilate these troops. And Reichland Runefang is now going down. Carl Franz diving in to pound the Red Duke's face in. He does have Golem Raz popped as well, so he's going to be able to really lay the smackdown in this guy. And that is just the beauty of this build. That is what I absolutely adore about this composition, is the fact that between Carl Franz and the Warrior Priest, there's so many buffs that go down, and Carl is an actually respectable combatant. If you bring a Warrior Archlector or Volkmar, you're not going to have that level of solid combat power that Carl delivers to the field. And you can see he's just absolutely crushing the Red Duke here. His leadership's down, so his frenzy's gone. He's getting his face pounded in. He's down to 2,000 HP, trying to escape here, desperately casting Invocation of the Heck on himself, but still being harassed and really suffering. In the meantime, over here, the Demigryphs do wop up these skeletons, and they're now going to be able to collapse on this pocket. And although my opponent does have these crypt tools here, the Blood Knights are very much bordering on annihilation. The Red Duke, not the best of casters. He is definitely a potent combat lord, and he can cast, but he's not a dedicated cast lord in the same way, say, Manfred is. So he's going to be forced to waddle away here, and he's down to 2,300 HP, getting pounded, and really in a bad spot. In the meantime, we're just popping another stand your ground here, keeping our Demigryphs in the fight through thick and thin, popping another Earthblood, keeping the Royal Gryph fights in the Demigryph Knights reasonably topped off. And now my opponent here trying to plunge in with the Red Duke, but the Outriders are going to scatter. Their leadership's okay enough to hold, at least for a little bit. We're pushing the spears in, and as the Red Duke tries to pull in, the Outriders are going to turn around and start shooting him from all directions. In the meantime, the Outriders with grenade launchers running amok in the back line, just dumpstering these troops. You can see the Sigmar Sun's down to 16 miles. But as the Red Duke tries to fly away, he's getting shot to death. Another bombardment going down. The Blood Knight's getting torn apart now as some spears rallied and came back in. Carl in the pits here, crushing these Blood Knights hand over fist with the power of the Hammer of Sigmar here, buffing this whole pocket. The Jade Wizard is in there as well, providing some combat support. He's up to 21 kills, in fact, which is not bad. Obviously, most of that's probably against zombies and trash, but still, impressive. And we are able to remove these guys from play. The Red Duke does get shot down by the Outrider fire, and my opponent's army is going to shatter, resulting in defeat. So, a Pyrrhic victory for the Empire, and like I said before, this build I think is great against Empire counts. Perhaps not the best build to go for, but But for me, it's basically always been a winning build, and I think it's a lot of fun. It's something a lot of Empire Count players are not going to expect. It lets you avoid the usual issues with summon shutdowns because Outriders are just so flexible. Your Demigryph Knights will give you that great anti-large support, and you've got that constant stream of buffs from the Warrior Priest and Carl Franz. That said, definitely some misplays on my part in this game. The fact that I didn't really use my Jade Wizard's heal much sooner actually cost me pretty heavily. And those Blood Knights got way more value than they should have against the Royal Gryph fights, and it could have potentially cost me the game. Had my opponent perhaps played his cards a little better and committed his bats a little later, that sort of stuff. Otherwise, yeah, this build, I love it. It's a lot of fun. The Warrior Priest is an expensive investment, so that is something to keep in mind. I do believe if we go in and look at the cost, the way I had him kitted out, which was like roided to the roof with everything, he's a 1300 gold hero, which is pretty nuts. In comparison, Carl, with the kit I brought on him, is a little over 2k. So honestly, you're paying 3400 for the command squad essentially, which is pretty nuts. That is a lot of gold you're putting in. But in those sort of blob fights that you're going to be getting against vampire counts, it surprisingly works out pretty well, and I think it's actually a better investment potentially than bringing an extra unit of cavalry. So that might just be my 2 cents. Regardless, it was a fun game. I do hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys enjoyed watching and had some fun watching vampire counts. For my opponent's build, I don't actually think the build was bad. I don't personally not a fan of criticals. I know some people like using them against Empire. Personally, I'm much more fond of super mobile builds with Vargulfs. But the Blood Knights and the Red Duke, honestly, not bad. Pretty competitive. I think the main problem there was just coordination. He let his infantry push way ahead of his cavalry, then his cavalry engaged on a huge delay behind the Fellbats, who committed way before the cavalry. He didn't really focus out any hero. He could have focused on my Jade Wizard very early on, and that could have been disastrous for me. That could have ended the game potentially right there. And I think you should have actually used zombie summons, because I think when you do them, I think someone's done testing on the forums. I forget who it was, but I know I saw it on the posted on the forums, that how the zombies last a lot longer than the skeletons. And in that battle, the skeletons were actually expiring and running out of HP because it was such a protracted grind fest. So that's something that might be worth considering when you're deciding what summons to be dropping, especially when you're getting punished for overcasting by a warrior priest's AoE penalty there. Regardless, well played to my opponent. I do hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you found it entertaining, like I said before. If you did, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, share, and all that sort of stuff. If you have any comments, any criticism, any questions, any requests, don't hesitate to post them. I'm going to do my best to respond as soon as I can. I do thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye for now.